Welcome to Stars Podcast, your growth mindset mecca. We are all about self-leadership principles here at Stars Podcast. Our guests come from all over the world with very unique stories of how they hacked their way into success. As you'll quickly find out, nothing happens overnight. And as always, enjoy the journey. Hello to the new listeners today, tonight, depending on which time zone you're in, and welcome back to all you longtime listeners. Today we have a fellow V-friend joining us on the show. His name is Jeremy, an Origami Owl by Twitter. Actually, now it's Origami Penguin on Twitter. He mixes photography, music, and a passion for horror stories and haunted buildings to ultimately tell a story about his art. As we get into the journey today, we will understand what drove Jeremy to leave a great job marketing for Budweiser, a dream job he thought, and move into the Web3 crypto and NFT space. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy, aka Origami Penguin, to the show. All right, guys, welcome back. This is Ron Jordan over at Stars Podcast, coming out of Rocinante Studios in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Today was a call to action show, is what I'm calling it. Jeremy had reached out on Twitter and said that he wanted to get on a podcast. So I said, well, damn right, let's do it. So I reached out to him and we set it up. And I think that was like last week. And from there, I was able to kind of look into his material and what he has going on. And it seems like he's very much in the music world and very much into this NFT space. So Jeremy, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So why'd you want to be on a podcast?
So I wanted to be on a podcast, honestly, just to kind of get my feet wet. Like, I've always wanted to do it, but I've never actually been on one. And so I'm one of those people that, normally likes to just jump in full fledged on things. I'm not really worried about it, but like with podcasts, like I had no idea. And like, I just didn't want to be like one of those like people that didn't bring any value to people. So I just kind of want to see how people who are quote unquote like professionals or, just do this every day. I wanted to see how they do things.
So do you have aspirations to then do your own podcast? Is that what you're after?
Yeah, I would like to do my own podcast, but it would be different than like a lot of the other ones. Like I would like to just have like a podcast with just like either music or just talking to people and just I guess like not really like inspirational podcast or nothing, but just something that like sparks interest for different things. Like I don't want to just have like a business podcast. Like I'd like to have like just something that I could kind of like a Joe Rogan, but like not Joe.
Well,
Rogan.
do you know what Stars actually stands for in Stars Podcast?
No, tell me.
Excuse me. Sorry. It's straight talk about random shit.
Oh, that's perfect.
So like, that's exactly what because I get into this thing where people pigeonhole themselves into like one genre and then they have to like navigate these waters of, okay, well now I need to stay on brand. I got to be on brand. And I'm like, bro, like being on brand is one thing, but whenever your brand is everything, that's kind of cool too, because then it's just like almost more of an ethos than it is an actual like genre. You know what I'm saying? Now it does not lend. Oh, why did it change over? There we go. It's back on. And my microphone just went goofy. It doesn't lend itself very good to algorithms though. I will say that. Whenever you don't narrow the focus, because then it's like you go into this general category. But honestly, like if you just want to do it in a way that is the way you want to do it, it'll come across that way. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to force something, it'll be much more organic and it'll be more fun the way that you want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I like the whole, I like Gary's thing, like how he does like the whole business thing, but like, even though like I come from a business background, I don't want to talk about business all the time.
Yeah.
like I'd rather like sometimes like, I would just like to just like get like, maybe like an old friend on one time and, just talk about like, other things that are just funny that day. And then the next day talk to someone who might be in a completely different field than me that I don't know nothing about, but, we kind of just get each other's like perspective on everything. And then like the next day, just do something that might be fun, like just something that, just draws more people in, because I don't need to have like 100 million followers, but just like, just like
Absolutely.
connecting people, just connecting people with similar ideas who wouldn't think you would have a similar idea. That's what's cool, because that's kind of like where people always put me in a box, like whenever I was like, going through school and whatnot, because like, I would be like, oh, this is like the business guy, or this is whatever. Whereas like I would like meet other people and be like, oh yeah, I like all this other random stuff too. Like I like different, I can go from like, a whole metal, like going from like a metal concert all the way to a pop concert, and people are like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I was like, dude, I just
Yeah.
like going to stuff. I was like, it's cool. I was like, I like going and talking to people in different environments that, people don't perceive that environment for me.
Well, and that's the thing too is about this blockchain space in general and the NFT space in general is I find that most people are genuinely very, very curious and
Oh yeah.
and they don't like to. I don't want to say they don't like to, because I'm in this space too. Like I like to stay in one space as long as I feel necessary, but I also don't like to be pigeonholed. I don't like that at all. Like when you say that I am something, I'm like, okay, well now I need to do everything in my power not to be that thing. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Like I don't like being defined as this thing or whatever that thing is that people say is like, no, I'm like way more complicated than that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just like, even if I am that one thing, it's like I'm not trying to just be that one thing. Like I
Yep.
might be really good at that now, and I like might suck at something else that I'm working at, but I'm like working at something else. And then when I get good at that, like I don't want to be that either. Like I just want to be kind of like, the jack of all trades,
Yeah,
and like
continuously being
always working
curious.
for stuff. Yeah.
So
Like
that
I'm one of those people that's like just not complacent.
well, you talked about music and you just talked about going to concerts. So it seems to me like music is a big part of your life.
Oh
Where
yeah.
does that stem from? Is that like from childhood or is it adult onset? Where's it at?
Oh, it's definitely like, I don't know. It was just like something I guess I was born with. Like I remember back in the day, like I'm not that old, but I'll date myself. I remember like way back in the day, like whenever I was like, I came across a couple of my sister's old cassette tapes, and then
Uh-huh.
like I'd pop those in. I was like, oh yeah, these are awesome, and it'd be like random, absolutely like random stuff. Like I just remember like two off the top of my head. I like Coolio's Gangster's Paradise,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got and then I got like some Goo Goo Dolls stuff, like just two completely different
For
genres.
sure.
It's just like there's like some of those things like I just fell in love with it, and then whenever I was growing up from I think second grade until about ninth or 10th grade, or yeah, probably ninth grade. Like my mom like forced me to like take piano lessons, and I was really good at it, but like I hated it. I guess it was because I was forced to do it, and it was just like,
Sure.
it's whatever. But like I was good, and then like now I kind of regret quitting it because like it'd be something cool, and you can get back into it. But then my mom was like, all right, well, if you quit piano, you have to do something else. I was like, I want to do guitar. My mom was like, have you ever played guitar? I was like, no. I was like, I want to play guitar, and she's like, all right, like, well, you have to buy a guitar. I was like, all right. So like I worked all summer, not really all summer. Like I always work. I worked since I was like 10 years old, but like I worked, and then I got enough money to go get like a used $120 guitar and little amp from this local shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, all right, now I gotta figure out what to do. But then like things just started happening. Like we had one of our neighbors moved across the street, and like this dude was like amazing at guitar. And I remember like just seeing him outside one day playing guitar, and like I walked over and like talked to him, and my mom talked to him, and she was like, well, is there any way like I'd pay you to teach my son guitar, blah blah blah. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'll do it for free. He goes, not a lot of people won't even come over and like say anything. So then me and him like became really good friends, and he taught me pretty much the foundation of how to do everything, and then I just taught myself the rest. But it was like one of those things like, all right, well, I started from ground zero. Technically, that was like, I guess like the first time I started from the ground zero on something, just kind of like worked my way up, and then I was like, it worked out. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no amazing guitarist or whatnot, but it's enough to make me happy.
But it's some, you know what though, Jeremy, that's something that you having to work and then buy your own guitar and then go through the lessons and kind of do it your way, that resonated with you more so than somebody telling you what to do. And I love that
Oh yeah.
just about your personality already that I've found was, you know, you like to do things your way. And just as you want to do the podcast, like you don't want to be pigeonholed into this one thing. You want to do it your way. So like whenever I have found that people who are like that are just much more creative individuals. So as a creative outside of the guitar and that sort of passion that you have, are there other times where like you're exercising that piece of your brain, or is it mostly because you said that I don't know your background too much, but you're known as the business person. So outside of business, are you flexing that muscle, or is it only the guitar?
No, so like it was kind I'm trying to make this like the shortest version of the story because it's
You
like a
don't
long
have
story.
to. You don't have to.
I mean, it's
I got
a
time.
long story. I don't want to bore you, but it was just something. What happened with me was I've always wanted to be like I always deem myself as a creative person, like no matter what. Like I remember I was always just fascinated with growing up, like old antiques. I did like my mom would always take me like antique shopping, like me and my mom and my grandma. It was like one of the weird things that we always had. But I would go like antique shopping. I just like old stuff. Like it didn't matter what it was. Just give me like old stuff. I found it like intriguing. And then whenever I would say like I don't know, maybe like 7, 8, 9 ish. Like I remember I found like this super old camera at this like thrift store, and like I fell in love with it. It was like the old like I guess kind of like I don't know what it's called, but like the one that's like it like folds down and it has like all the fancy stuff. And I was like, man, I was like, I love this thing. So like I bought it, and then I was like, all right, cool. And it didn't work, but it was just like the fact that it was like so old. And at one point in time, like he was taking cool pictures. I was like, man, this is awesome. And so then I kind of got like a small little camera, like just little, I guess, Polaroid, like the old school ones, like the old Instagram logo from back in the day.
Yeah.
And so I just like, I just take pictures of like stupid stuff, like just stuff that I thought was interesting. And then I kind of just put that on the shelf for a while. Like then I started collecting cameras, never did anything with it. And then I have like, probably like 10 or 15 old school cameras back in my home in Kentucky. Yeah. So I just kept all those. And I was just like, I never really did anything with it for a while. And then fast forward to kind of just like, everybody doing what they're told as others than what they're, what they do. I was a victim of that. That's why I hate doing what I'm told. Cause like I've been on that end of the spectrum where like you do it, but inside you just like hate every second of it. So then like, I got my undergrad at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And then after that, I couldn't find a job because nobody wanted to hire me because I had to work my way through everything. To go to college, I had to work UPS third shift, pay for my college. And then whenever I got out to try to get a job, nobody would hire me. Like, you don't have any experience. I was like, well, I had to just pay off all my loans for so going to school. I was like, what do you mean no experience? I was like, and they're like, yeah, you don't have any business experience. I was like, all right. And so then I'm like trying to figure out how to get business experience because they didn't classify entrepreneurship or like selling stuff and flipping stuff as business experience. I was like, all right, whatever. And so then I was like kind of like stuck in a hole. I was like, I needed money. I was like, I wanted to do my own thing. And then I was like, all right, what do I do? And then one of the people in like the MBA program like reached out to me and they're like, hey, have you thought about getting your MBA? I was like, I do not want to get my master's degree. I was like, no way. I was like, I'm not a school person. I was like, I don't like school. I was like, I'm one of those people who have to lock myself in a room for 8 hours and study. Like, cause I have ADD. I can't like, I can't sit there and like have any distractions. I was like, it's like not a fun process for me. I was like, but I have to do it because I was like, and then I'm not going to like let myself fail. And they're like, well, I was like, plus I can't take a standardized test. I was like, they just don't do well with me. And they're like, well, you got such good scores on, undergrad. Like we would waive that for you. And and you said you need experience. Like, we'll give you an internship. And I was like,
oh, you're ticking all the boxes.
I was like, all right. And I was like, all right, let me think about it. Like, all right, well, you got a week deadline before everything closes. And I was like, okay. I thought about it, and I was just like, I like hit up a couple more spots. Nobody would hire me. I was like, well, end of the day, I was like, whatever. My mom, like everybody in my family was super stoked because I was like the only person in my household that one get a college degree, and then two to even go get my master's. My uncle did, but it didn't really count. He got somebody to pay for his, so it was like, whatever.
yeah.
But But then like I decided, all right, well, I was like, I guess I'll do it. And so I did it. And then, I started working for Train, the HVAC company, for my internship. And then focused on, like, I've always done marketing and stuff, but like I've always set like my goal on, big companies, just because that's just, I was like a creative marketing person. So that's all I wanted to do. I was like, I don't really care about money as much as just being able to be creative and like letting me have kind of like free range for marketing. Like, let me just do my own thing. Right. So, whenever I got my internship with them, it wasn't a permanent one, but they even though when I couldn't find a job, they helped me out, which was nice. And then I ended up getting a job with marketing and working with concerts, events, and then just other things for Caesars Entertainment, not in Las Vegas, but they had a Caesar casino in Elizabeth, Indiana, which is about 30 minutes from my house. So I took that. And they let me work with, like, because I used to want to be like an event manager, and so they let me do stuff with, like, big name concert acts. Like, I mean, I remember just working with just random people like Justin Moore, and I got to do an Alice in Chains concert, which was really tight. And then cool. A bunch of like other like cool stuff, and then like they were making me do more of like the casino stuff, and like casino stuff is not, like, personally, it's like a living hell for me, and I just wasn't having fun. I was like, all right, I gotta figure something else out. And so then I've always wanted to work for Budweiser, and then Budweiser, like, I just never could get on. And then one of my buddies ended up getting on there a little bit before me, and he's like, hey, he goes, there's a job opening, and like, I have no quote unquote, I guess you like, no shame on anything. So the job was like, I was gonna be a part-time merchandiser, like literally making like $11 an hour. And this is like with two college degrees and all that stuff. I was like, I go get my foot in the door. I don't care. I was like, I'll work my way up. And so then after that, I got offered there, and then I kind of made a deal. I made like a verbal, what I thought was supposed to be a verbal deal with the HR lady. And then they ended up, like, things started falling apart because they got into a lawsuit with Kentucky, and then they ended up like selling our branch. And then I was like, all right, well, I still want to do marketing for Budweiser. And so they're like, well, you got to find a spot to work then.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh yeah, well, all right. They're like, well, we'll help you out. But like, everybody's like trying to cover their ass because everybody's like on the way out, trying to, like, because like they're selling our spot in Kentucky. And then I ended up putting in for a spot out here in San Diego. And long story short, I got on there, did a bunch of cool marketing stuff, and I worked with like a whole bunch of people again. Like, I ran downtown here. Like, I got to work with, I got to throw parties with, well, not parties, like I got to throw like events with like radio stations, like with Marshmello and with Zed, like big name acts, like cool stuff that I've always wanted to do. But then it always comes back to the bureaucracy. I hate that. It's like, it's in every big company. And then like, that was like the last and final straw. It was just like, when you work for a big company, it's like, they don't care what you bring to the table, and they don't care technically about you. Your boss does. Your boss normally does, and people around you do. But at the end of the day, like, people are never going to help you achieve your dreams. They're just not. Like, I've told them so many times. And then whenever I remember, like, the day that I finally had to walk away, like, some people were like mad at me, which was like, they were mad at me, and then like they kind of just like shunned me out. I'm like, dude, you guys screwed me over for like promotions 7 times, and you expect me to still stay and like do this? I was like, dude, I don't ask for much. I was like, you don't even have to pay me more. I was like, I just wanted to do this small thing, and y'all couldn't even do that. And then like, just like the whole 2020 year of like early 2021 year of like the COVID stuff, like, it all kind of hit down, crashed on me, like on a personal level, like family wise and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, I had to go back home for a bunch of like family reasons. And then like, they didn't understand all that. They weren't willing to help. I was like, this is not a good spot to be mentally. I was like, if you can't even help me when I'm at my like lowest, and like, you're still like trying to shit on me, I was like, it's not worth it. I was like, I just got to, figure my own thing out. So I had to just like step away from that. And then, so then when I stepped away from that, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just try to do my own thing. So then this goes back to I was trying to think of things, you know, like made me happy like whenever I was growing up, because that seems to be like the, I guess, the skeleton key for me, like things that I enjoyed before I let people influence my decisions. That's what I was like, all right, before I let anybody influence my decision saying this is what you should do, I was like, what did I enjoy? And I remember things all that I enjoyed. And then I was like, all right, well, I love cameras. Like people always told me I took good pictures, but I never really believed them. And so I was like, all right. And so like 2 years ago, I invested in like big fancy cameras. Well, not big fancy, like cheap, affordable fancy cameras,
Right.
but like
Right.
still something to get your foot in the door. Right. And so I invested in that and I started practicing. I took it serious, but like it was like never super, super serious. But I would practice all the time. I would take a bunch of photos. I'd just go, go out to the zoo, go out to do all this stuff, just take just photos of stuff that I was like, oh, this actually legitimately makes me happy. So then when I had to step away, from my job and everything, I was like, super deep into like the NFT stuff at that point in time. Cause I was like, I didn't fully get like invested into like my first NFT until I bought my V Friends, but like I knew about it like December and January. And I was like really researching it. And I was already like looking at like crypto blockchains and stuff. And I was like trying to understand this. I was like, all right, like, well, this is more like my style. I was like, these people kind of, just support one another, and they're all like no bullshit too. So I was like, okay. I was like, I think I can fit in here. And so then I'm doing some research, doing all my stuff. I was like, oh, all right, I like this place. And then like I started like looking into like NFT photography and like NFT photographers, and I was like, man, these guys are really awesome. But I was like looking at a whole bunch of their stuff. I was like, man, their stuff's awesome. I was like, if I practice hard, I was like, I'm not amazing, but I was like, I'm pretty good. I'm getting to the point where I was like, I just want to get my stuff out there. So then like I kind of I was like, all right. So I told myself, I was like, my goal was to make my own NFT project before an actual like good one, not like half-assed one, like
Yeah.
by Halloween. And so AKA today. So I did it. I ended up knocking it all out on Monday, and I was super stoked. But then like gas prices have been like insane. So
Yeah.
kind of like it's just
all the coin trading has been.
It's sitting there in limbo. But
Yeah.
like I said, like going full circle, it was just like the thing that realized that I saved money like for my work and with everything, like whenever I was working, because I was like, I want to take it. I knew I wanted to take a chance one day. I just didn't know when I was going to pull the trigger.
Yep.
So I ended up just saving the money. And then, so I ended up pulling the trigger in April. And so from April to now, I've been, just living off like my little stash that I, saved up, and just been going all in since that. Like, I've been working on my own stuff, been doing a lot more photography, I teach myself everything. So like taking pictures is one thing. Like you have to be a creative to know what you're looking for and to spark that emotion out of people. But just because you're creative doesn't mean you're good. You still have to like, learn how to use like the software, which that was my hardest part, was learning to do the software. So I just spent like, I remember from February, I still do it today. So from February to today, like I was like nonstop just learning how to do like Photoshop, Lightroom, like watching tutorials, like teaching myself, because like I don't really learn that well on a school setting, and two, like it's super expensive. So
Yeah.
if I can just go to YouTube University for free, then it all kind of just works out. So
yeah, you're able to get the basics down and then expand on it in your own time, in your own way. Yeah. And just, I've noticed that too, just within myself. I like watching, I get the basics and then I can be creative after that type of thing. So I think that's where, just like you said, when you found the NFT space, is like, I sort of fit in here because a lot of people share that mentality. And being so early into this space is like, yeah, the people here now are the ones that are very curious and they are more creative, because the basics are the basics. Like the blockchain's not like super difficult to understand whenever you like break it down and understand like the transactions that are happening and blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, well, that's not that difficult. So if I can like take my photography and be involved in this community that's like no bullshit and help each other out, the same thing as me, and still be happy doing what I'm doing by doing photography, like this all makes a lot of sense to me. For you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was like the light that popped off in my head. Like even I was like, well, And then like I always like I'm one of those people that think of like every single case scenario. And I was like, worst case scenario, best case scenario. I was like, worst case scenario is like, people they just don't like my shit and they're just like whatever. But I was just like, all right, well that just means I need to do better or whatnot. Or I was like, even though I was like the absolute worst case scenario and like nobody ever bought any of my stuff. The at least trying to know that I like did it like means everything because especially like growing up, like I hated like I was always like one of those people like that hated failure. Like I wasn't bad. I wasn't bad at taking it because like especially growing up, like everybody was just like, oh, you're never gonna make it, blah blah blah. And I was like, no, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna show you. But it's just like one of those things. Like I take like failure more more to heart. I'm like, man, because I blame myself. Like I'm one of those people like I hold myself like accountable like 100%. Like even if someone screws me over, it's like it's my fault for letting them screw me over. It's like I always just put myself, all right, it's my fault. What can I do better next time? So I was like, well, worst case scenario, I was like, all this stuff falls through. I was like, what can I do better next time? I was like, well, just practice. But I was like, I know this is the place that I want to be at because I haven't met one person in the NFT space or communicate with someone in the NFT space that was like one an asshole or two that just didn't get it right. Like everybody's like friendly and welcoming. Like I love constructive criticism, and so like I'm all about it, and like that's what I think everybody needs because like you need to figure out what you're doing good and what you're doing bad. Whereas whenever you're working for someone else that's just about the numbers, the bottom line. Like, did you make the sell or did you not make the sell? Like those people don't care how you do it. And that's when you slip down, a dark hole because you can then you start doing stuff that you don't want to do. Then you start doing stuff, quote unquote, unethical. And then you're like, oh, I have to get this number or else I'm not going to get paid. Whereas when you're working around stuff like, all right, I can do things that I want to do. I was like, I can tell the people this is why I'm doing it. I was like, and then and if you're just like willing to show all your cards and be like 100% authentic, then even if it doesn't work out, like it feels so much better. Like I can tell you just from like where I was last year to where I am today, like last year with a job, today technically without a job, it's like I feel 1,000 times better than I felt a year ago today because it's just like when you put your dreams on on your back and you're like, you're either going to make it or you're not, but you're going to try. Cause like I'd always thought like, oh man, I'm gonna I know I can do it, but I was always afraid to try. And I was just like, you know what, if I fail, I fail. I was like, I'm just going to try. And so jumping into the community and everybody just being like, just super friendly. I'm like, wow, this is not nearly as hard as or not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to put yourself out there in this space too and get that constructive criticism because most of the time the constructive criticism is how to make you better, not like, hey, your shit sucks. And then just to berate you, it's, hey, did you ever think about doing it this way? Like that, I don't want to say I've never, because I've definitely seen a lot of FUD and all that stuff, but like most of the time it's been very constructive in my experience here is like, everybody just wants each other to succeed because if we succeed, if like you succeed, then I succeed. Because overall, it's just the technology that ends up becoming the thing,
For sure.
And like what you were saying too, whenever you technically don't have a job, but it also through that experience of you leaving your job and having that little nest egg that you had that you've been, peeling back from, it puts things into perspective as to what you actually need in your daily life. And it simplifies your life too, to a certain extent, I would assume.
Yep.
So then you could focus on these creative outlets because you have more time because you're not dealing with all the other stuff.
Oh yeah. It's like what I always try to tell everybody. And it's funny because a lot of people, like my friends, like even like friends that don't know anything about the NFT space, like I'll talk to them. Like I won't even like go down the NFT road with them because it's like, like mind blown. I'm like, all right, dude, we good. We don't have to worry about it. But I'll just be talking to them and I'm just like, all right, well, I sat down with myself and I was just like, all right, I don't have a family yet. I was like, I'm 32 years old. I go, I was always one of those people that I was never afraid to take risks. I was like, if I'm 40 years old, I was like, and I'm still in this position, I was like, all right, I want to be a little bit more nervous. But I was like, I was like, this is my time to take a risk. I go, I should have took it 5 years ago, but you can't go back. So I'm gonna do it now. And I'd be talking to my friends, and we'd always just had the same conversation. I was like, waking up to a job or to anything that you do, if you wake up every single day and like you're just unhappy, that is like the worst, like, I guess, precursor to an avalanche. Like, it's gonna hit. It's gonna hit, and it's gonna hit hard. The longer, like, that's why I was trying to tell my friends, I was like, the longer you postpone it, the longer it hits. I was like, trust me, I postponed it for 7 years, and it still hits hard. Right. But I was like, but once you like alleviate like that, I was like, yeah, it's gonna take some time. You're gonna have to, like, get your mental hard hat on. But like, whenever you like take away the poison or take away whatever the toxic thing that's like messing with you, whenever you remove that and you start just taking like a baby step in the right direction, like you start feeling a little better each day. Just like, and I was like, that's what, like, an eye opening. I was like, I was so miserable for like the last not every time I worked there, but like the last 3 years was awful. And then I was just like, well, I was like, that's not fun. I was like, I'd rather just go out and drive an Uber if I'm going to be miserable for all day long, and then do my own thing. But I was just like, a lot of my friends were like, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. I was like, that's not how it goes. I was like, I don't want to. I go, if I'm 40 years old, I was like, if you're unhappy with yourself, I was like, you're going to be unhappy to everybody around you. And I go, that's not fun.
Thank you.
I was like, that shit spills over. I was like, that's not, I go, I made a point where whenever like I was, quote unquote, like unhappy on the inside, I always never let that shit bother the outside. I was like, I'm always going to be there for other people because, it's more important than just the me show. Because like, I was like, I got, everybody bears their own shit. They don't need to hear my shit. I was like, I'd rather help people with their shit. I was like, I don't need help with mine. I was like, my stuff, I just got to, do it. But I was like, I've always wanted to be that person that just helps people with their shit. And,
but it's hard to do that whenever you have your own shit. You just can't. You can't do it in a way that is meaningful, I don't think, because in the back of your head, you're like, nah, this is bullshit because I'm not even doing it myself.
Yep. And that's like, and now it's funny because I have like a lot of my friends from back home because, I mean, as you can imagine, like Kentucky is a lot different than California.
Yeah.
But like all my friends in Kentucky, some of them, a good handful of them have a job that they really, really like, but most of them, like, their job is just that. It's a job. And my whole thing is like, you're gonna spend your entire life, quote unquote, working one way or another, right? Because you're gonna have to do whatever. So if you're gonna spend the majority of your life working, and you're gonna spend it working for something you hate or even dislike, even if you just dislike it, like you've now accepted the fact that you're gonna be working the entire amount of your life being unhappy from some degree. I was like, I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. I was like, I don't want that. I go, I'm cool with like, I can live very, very like old school ways. Like, I don't need a lot. I don't need frivolous money. I don't need like fancy stuff. I was like, I'd rather do what I can do every single day and like be happy with waking up and going to sleep. And like a lot of people just don't get it. And like, it's kind of like one of those things, like even I didn't really get until once, like I just decided, all right, I'm gonna go all in on myself. I'm gonna, wash my hands. I'm going to start back from absolute zero again and just do it over. And so now that I started from zero again and kind of just doing my own thing, like I got the support, like I got support of like, the NFT community because, we're all just trying to make it. So that's like all those people are authentic. It's not like the bullshit people that you're going to see in like corporate or whatever. That's going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to help you out. And then like, 6 months later, we're sorry, you're getting let go or you're getting demoted or whatever letter. Like being in a community where you can like, it's a quote unquote safe spot to dream as long as you're acting upon your dream and you're being authentic about your dream. Like if that's what you really want, then I think if that's something that that people really, really want to do and they put everything they can into it, I think at one point in time it'll work out. It might work out in 6 months if you're lucky, or it might work out in 6 to 10 years. But if you're doing it and you're being real about it, then it's gonna work out one way or the other.
Right.
So
And the thing that you brought up earlier too is like being able to have the mindset and the self-worth to say that, no, I don't want to be miserable forever. Like, I don't want to be miserable working this quote unquote job. Like, I'd rather just believe in myself and do it my way and be happy with it. Like, you can, like, whenever you do it your way, it just seems like you can be a little bit like there's a story there. There's a story behind it. Not just, hey, I went to this interview and I got this job at this company. It's, I did XYZ, ABC, 1, 2, 3. Like, there's a whole story that goes along with why you did the things you did. And it sounds like that's like really important to you.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I've always, like, all my friends would always definitely say that I was the long storyteller of the group. Like, they're like, all right, man, you got to wrap it up. But I like, that's what I like about like photography and whatnot. Like, I like my whole creative aspect is definitely things. Like, I always try to just drive. There's one point that I can ever drive home, is what I always want to drive home to people, is nothing is ever as it seems. Like, no matter what that is, like, I could take, and that's like a good thing, because I could take a picture of what's, somebody could say, like, I'm just looking outside. It could be like a flower, right? Just a picture of a flower. Well, that might not mean absolutely anything, but I see that flower different than, you see that flower, or someone sees that flower different than I see that flower. And so I see that flower a certain way, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to put this photo and I'm going to communicate how I see that flower. And, I'm going to put a lot of time and effort into making it how I see it, or how I want to see it. Like, it might not be the way it is. I might change the colors. And I was like, this is how I want to see it. And then someone else will see it. And like, I just want them to be like, all right, oh, I never thought about seeing it that way. And then that like sparks their own creativity, because they're thinking about something that they never saw that way either. And it could be something like as mundane as, like I said, like a flower, a fruit, or a car, or whatever. Or it could be something as crazy as like, a sunset, or like people, or whatever. Like, as long as it's like invoking, emotion, and evoking like a thought process, creativity, right. Like, you see where I'm coming from, then that just gives you a little bit more insight, so that you know that things aren't always black and white. Like a flower doesn't always have to be green, or it doesn't always have to be vibrant. It, everything tells a story the way that you look at it, and you just have to be able to look at it in a positive perspective.
Or even just being open to understanding that other people see it differently is eye-opening. Like, my daughter and I were having a conversation the other day. She looks over at me and she goes, "Hey, Dad, you know what's crazy?" And I was like, "What?" And she said, "No matter who you are, you see this world differently. Like, even just the colors you see differently. Like, that green is different than the green I see." And I'm like, "You're 12. Like, that's insane." Like, that is such a unique smart perspective. And I'm like, yes, that I say that all the time. The way that we perceive everything, the rods and cones in my eyes are very different than yours, very different than hers. Like, so let me ask you this. How are you trying to change that mentality to have people be more accepting of other ideas or other ways to communicate through your photography?
Well, my thing is, like, I mean, as you can pick up, I like doing things my own way. So I like my dream, well, not was, is like still to get to a not even like a well-known spot, but like a spot to be where I can make money comfortably, and I can run like not really a nonprofit, but like my own little, I guess you could say, like small charity, right? Because I want to give back to the people like me who struggled, but a lot of those people don't have they don't even know where to look. I mean, now that everybody's lucky, you kind of got the internet and you kind of got everything else going on. That's a lot easier than it was whenever I was growing up. But still, it's not easy. Just because it's easier doesn't mean it's easy.
Right. Still takes a lot of effort to
So it
do
still takes a lot of
anything.
courage, and then people still get shit on for doing it, and they don't, and some people are strong enough to take it and walk, and other people that'll deter them from walking away. So eventually, at one point in time, I just want to get enough where I can, quote unquote, live comfortably, and then have my own, on top of that with like my art. And this was also cool about NFTs. Like you can say like, hey, I'm donating this amount of portion and stuff, which is cool too. Cause I see people doing that. It's definitely something I want to do. But yeah, that would be my goal. But my day-to-day goal that I always try to accomplish, and is just like, just to like challenge the way that people see anything. Just because like once you start challenging things, you see things from a broader perspective. And that's what people, like a lot of people don't they don't really pick up on so much. Like if you don't have to agree with this person. You could think that, whatever their idea is completely wrong. And like, you know what? That's fine for you to believe it, but it takes like a lot of people won't understand like how, like what opens up once you realize like that person can have that thought, and that's fine. If you see the way that they're coming from, even if they don't see the way you're coming from, it doesn't matter. But if you can see the way that they're coming from, it opens up your own creative aspect. You're like, all right, well, I don't agree with that, but I can see where he's coming from. I understand, where he's coming from. And then you bring that into your stuff. Like I could take something like I learned from someone else that I don't agree with at all. And then, I could just relate this back to photography. Like I could go and then like, I'll just put all these things like in a file cabinet in my mind. Like, I'm like, all right, I remember that. Or I remember talking about that, or I remember seeing that. And then I'll be walking down the street one day, like shooting photos or going somewhere, maybe out of state. And then like, I'll see something that reminds me of that one time that person said something I either agreed with or I don't, but that sparked something. I was like, oh, there's something there. Then you can take a picture of it. Well, I can take a picture of it, and then I can edit that to the way that made me feel. And then if I can put that online or put that somewhere, and then someone else can see that picture and that how it made me feel, and then they can be like, oh, well, that'll make the other person feel something completely different. Like, cause they don't know my emotions, they don't know my stuff. But the whole thing is like, it's getting someone else to feel something that they would not normally feel.
Yeah.
So
And that's a
opens
unique
up that
perspective.
creative vault.
Yeah, that's a unique perspective too. And even if you but you have a piece of photography and you told the story as to where it came from and why you put it the way that you did, and that creative process and documenting that creative process, I think would be so amazing to be able to, like, the picture is one thing and then the story is another thing, but then to combine them and then to give background behind the creative process as a package is such a unique thing that I really dig whenever I see artists doing things like that. Is when I can see the piece, that's one thing. Like, photography aside, or if it's like an oil painting or a charcoal painting, whatever, I love it all. But the story from the artist and to why they did it the way they did it, I spent so many hours in the MoMA Museum over in New York City, where my wife was like, we have to go. Like, we need to leave because I got the headphones on and I'm looking at the painting and I'm listening to why they painted the way that they did, and like from the actual artist. And that to me is like, holy shit. I never would have thought about this. I never would have even, like, reading a news article about exactly the same thing as to what I'm reading or listening to about this piece of art, because the art is visceral to me. Like, that it is like your emotion pouring out just as much as writing is too. For some people, the artwork is that for me. And that's why I dig it so much, and being in this space and like, hearing from artists like yourself is like the stories behind your pieces are the most intriguing for me as like a consumer and collector. Is like, that's what throws me over the edge. Like, that's the shit that I vibe with. I love that part of it. So that's
Yeah,
cool
that's
that you
like,
go through that.
that's like that was like my whole thing. Like I was trying to figure out how I could do that, because I'm one of those people that, yeah, I like taking pictures of stuff, but I like my picture to tell a story. And so like I was talking to like a couple of my friends. Like I used to have one of my old like art teachers. Well, not really. She wasn't really a teacher. She was like 4 years older than me whenever I went to school. So like we're friends, but like we met because she was like my art teacher. And so like it was just funny because she comes from like more a little bit like I guess like old school art. Like she likes painting and stuff. So you got that. And then I was talking to like my other friends who like art too, and they just like looking at it. And I was like, well, I go, I know I can't be the only person. I was like, I like storytelling, and I like stuff invoking emotions, and I want people to ask why I did that. And then I was trying to fit, and I was like talking to like my old art teacher, and I was like, well, I was like, the whole thing about art is you don't want the artist to like run up to you and be like, hey, this is what I was thinking, and this is why I did. This is the reason why I did it. And like you want to figure the shit out by yourself first, but then after you have your own preconceived notion, then you want to figure out what. Well, at least that's how I am. Like I want to look at someone's piece of art. I want to look at it. I want to say, why did they do that, or what was the reason they did it? And I'll try to figure out what they were feeling. I'll try to figure out what state of mind they were in or whatever. So after I get whatever I think that should be, then I want to see, oh, well, am I right? And then I want to see what they were feeling.
Let me peel the sticker off. Yeah.
But like I want to take my own stuff first, and then I want to look at. I was like, I want to know what they have, but I don't want the artist to run up to me and tell me like, and then blow it in my face, and then I'm like, all right, well, that's cool. I didn't really get to digest it, and so I was like trying to think of something. I was like, well, what can I do to do that? And I was talking to her, and I was like, well, I kind of want to do this, but I was like, I don't want to put the story out there and force it to everybody. I was like, but I want people to like ask the question. And so like I was trying to think like ways to go about it. And I don't know if it'll work out, but I mean, this is the way that I got so far. Cause like I said, I haven't got to post it yet because it's gas prices are through the roof. But like the way that I constructed my my first project, it was like, all right. So I went to for Halloween, I went back home for like almost all of October, almost all of September. And I left the first week of October, and like I said, like that I love like all like the haunted spooky stuff. So like my sister ended up we both wanted to spend the night. I don't know if you ever heard of like Waverly Hills Sanitarium.
I told you I stay away from the scary stuff.
Well, it's like one of the most like it's the most haunted, like one of the most haunted spots in the United States. Like it's all on like Discovery Channel, and like they did a whole bunch of stuff. And so like we stayed overnight there to do a bunch of stuff. And I was just like trying to think. I was like, man, I really want to document a lot of stuff, but I was like, I kind of want to make it because I like telling stories. I was like, I kind of want to make it like a kind of like a book, like a photo book, like that goes throughout. Like it takes you from start to my finish. It shows different aspects of everything, and then it shows two different perspectives. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try this. I was like, I'll see if it works out whenever I do get launched. I was like, either work out or it don't. But I was like, it'll be a learning opportunity. But I wanted to show things from two different perspectives. I wanted to show the picture for what it was, right? And then I wanted to show that same picture, like edited it a completely different way, so that you see what I saw, and then you see something with like 100% less color, and then it's gonna show you a part of history, like a haunted part of history, and it's gonna show but two different aspects. You're gonna see a full color, and then you're gonna see a full black and white, and then it's gonna have a storyline with it too. So like from like the first piece to the last piece, it's gonna tell you it's gonna walk you through a journey. So even if someone doesn't like, even if nobody bought them, like I wouldn't be like butthurt if like it just flops, nobody buys anything, and it's like whatever. But like the fact that if people would like just go on there and like look at it and like start from one and then end at the bottom, you're gonna like you're gonna see the picture, you're gonna see like a little
dude, that's like your podcast
short story.
That's your
You gotta see a
podcast right
short little
there.
story.
You know that.
What?
That's the podcast. Like that's your first, like whatever, 6 episodes is explaining your project.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like you could honestly do that and promote the project and have people on to like talk to them about the piece and what they think of it or whatever. Like you could literally do that. And like, I think that would be a really neat opportunity. And not saying like,
Yeah, that's cool.
hey, you should go do this, but whatever. It's just an idea because I always think about, and I've said this a couple of times, even on this podcast, is like, I always love hearing from the actual artists when I'm looking at their piece and understanding the story. And if you can actually tell a story, almost like a short story in a few episodes of the podcast and just run me through all of that, that would be I think that would be probably one of the most unique photographic drops I've seen. Because not only are you doing it from the photography, the blockchain, but also a podcast.
Yeah, that's something that I was trying to figure out, like how to do too, like with the podcast. I was just like, well, I was like, I didn't know, like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know really that much about like structuring like the podcast and whatnot. So I didn't know if like I wanted to do just like one long one or just kind of like one, like, cause it's a 13-piece project. So I don't know if I just do like 13 small episodes, because I could talk about because each photo tells its own story. And I could like, I mean, I wouldn't beat a dead horse just to waste minutes, but like I could like go through a long story, but not a long story, like an interesting 2 to 3 minute story about that one piece. And then
that's what I would do. I would do like the
it.
long one. I would do the long one. And then I would chop it up into the 13 little bits. And then I would make almost a bunch of 1 minute little clips of maybe you actually doing the art. Like record yourself doing the art and doing the Photoshop and drop those throughout just to pump your project and to give little snippets and give value back before you ask anybody to do anything is what I would do.
For sure. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. Well, I haven't done that part yet, but like, yeah, that's a good, while gas is high and I can't do anything, that's a good something. Good
it's something to occupy your time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Because you're gonna be wasting time waiting for gas to come down, because I don't think it's gonna come down until these coins stop, pumping. So in the meantime, I think to give value back, I would likely just start chopping up little bits and pieces, because from what you've done in Photoshop on your own, could tremendously help people. Even like your thought process, why you're doing the things you're doing inside of there with the full color and no color. Like, I'd love to know why, like you should put that out there, why you're doing it, and then show people how to do it. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I love watching stuff like that. Time lapse. I'm a sucker for a time lapse.
See, that's one thing I need to like, educate myself on like the time lapsing and stuff. Cause I mean, right now, like I said, I don't know. I'm just trying to get my feet wet in like the whole podcast thing. Like
OBS
I don't have OBS Studios.
Yeah. OBS Studios. It's free. Download it. You can screen record with it. So everything that you're seeing on your PC or laptop or whatever. Yeah. It crashes here and there, but not very often.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm writing that down.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a bunch of editing tools out there. I use a process or a program called Filmora. There's a paid version, and then there's an unpaid version, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I use that for all my editing, and then I use OBS Studios if I'm doing any screen recordings. And
it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever wanted to jump on like one of these Zoom calls, I'd be happy to like run you through some of the simple stuff that I know how to do with the editing and even the screen recording. But yeah, I think that's something that just documenting the process is always beneficial to help people understand what you're trying to do. And if they can I always equate doing business as dating. Like you don't ever seal the deal on the first date. Like you gotta text, you gotta take them to dinner, you gotta go to the movies, you gotta meet the parents, there's all these steps to gain trust with this individual, and business is no different. Art is no different. It's all about trust and understanding the story. And once you're able to get both of those across, then you can start asking for stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's definitely how I used to always run, my marketing campaigns and my, like, the sell stuff, which it's funny. A lot of people hated the way that I did it because, like, I would never go, if I'm just meeting somebody for the first or second time, I'm never going to try to, like, I'm not going to try to make it sell. And like that aggravated a lot of people, especially aggravates a bunch of people, who think they know everything, right? In the company, like, oh, you always be selling, always be selling. And then I'm like, I don't work that way. I'm a good salesperson because I'm not a salesperson. I'm a relationship.
Boom.
I'm a relationship marketer. I was like, I don't care about this. I was like, I don't care about the sale. I was like, I know you're going to be very upset that I said that. I was like, because you care about the sale. I was like, but I don't care about the sale. I go, if I make the connection with that person is going to believe me. So if I'm being real with that person, they're going to help me out a lot. They're going to help me out tenfold. Whereas if I just go make the sell, I'm gonna make that sell 1 or 2 times, and then I'm never gonna be able to make that sell again. Whereas if I just put in, I genuinely want to make the relationship with the person, and then I make the relationship, then I start doing the sell. Then everything, if I work a lot harder up front, it's gonna be a lot easier on the down end.
1,000%.
And that's just how I ran everything. That's how I want to run, all my stuff going forward, because it's always worked for me. Like, I definitely don't want to be one of these, like, pump and dumpers, like, where I come out here and make something and then do whatever. Like I said, money was never a big driving factor for me at all. So my whole thing was just if I can just do what I've always enjoyed doing and make a living and help inspire other people to do that, I was like, that's worth more than $500,000 a year to me.
Oh yeah. Like, and that's the thing too. Like, even just talking to you right now, the story behind everything, your growing up process, like the fact that you like to do things on your own, you are always selling. It's just, you're not selling a product. You're selling a relationship, and you're selling, I don't want to say you're selling yourself, but it's like, you're just trying to make connections with people so you can connect dots to overall help everyone. Because you're very responsive to outside influences, but you also understand that about yourself. And you're like, I don't love that part, but I know that I need to take in the influence to be able to help others. So I love that about your personality, dude. Like, that's freaking flawless.
It's just, I mean, like I said, it comes like whenever you get shit on long enough, or like people say like your dreams, quote unquote, don't matter. You can take that 2 ways. You can either take it to heart, pick up your ball and go home, or you can figure out a way. Just it's all about, you gotta get that mental like that hardening first. But then once you do that, like you realize that there's a lot more people are willing to help you than you think.
Dude.
So that's the big thing.
That is it, dude. And on that note, I'd like to end for our show today. Where can people find you? I mean, I know they're going to want to now after listening to this story.
So the funny, just ending on the last story. So like I said, my whole thing is, since I'm doing this, I just wanted to start from complete ground zero up. So, I made a completely new Twitter account and everything. So I'm trying to do my own brand, my own everything. So I'm on Twitter right now. It's the Origami Penguin. That's my Twitter handle. And then right now, everything else, like Instagram, like I'm focusing just on Twitter right now. I got an Instagram, but it's not up. But definitely Origami Penguin on Twitter. That's where I'm laying the bricks right now.
Awesome. Well, keep laying the bricks, man. You're doing great stuff. I appreciate you coming onto the show. I appreciate everything that you're doing out there, photography as well. Like, my big thing, and I think the next 2 big moves in the NFT industry are going to be music and photography. So if you can combine the two, I think you should also play guitar behind one of your pieces and do a 1-of-1 on that thing. I think that'd be really dope.
That'd be sick.
All right, brother.
Right on.
Jeremy.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Always. Thank you. This won't be the last time you and I chat. As always, guys, enjoy the journey. Take care.
See ya.
Thank you so much for sticking here until the very, very end. If you wouldn't mind just leaving a comment or subscribing or liking the podcast or wherever you downloaded this. Maybe it was from YouTube. I would love for that. You take an extra couple seconds to give us some more love. Even though you have listened here to the very, very end, we appreciate that so much. Could you also go over to thestarspodcast.com if you found any of this really interesting and you wanted to dive in a little bit further, or go to our Discord, which is Rocinante Studios NFT. Enjoy the journey.